Sabres get the win over Ottawa. They seem to have their number, and a goal by Jacob Bernard Docker. Let's spend a couple of minutes today on what the Sabres have in him, a former first-round pick of the Senators, now with the Sabres. We'll get to all of it coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, and thanks for making this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Includes our YouTube channel where you can watch the show. Be sure to like and subscribe us there. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on a Wednesday following a Sabres win. Another home win where the Sabres have continued to play well and another opponent that they continue to beat. The Sabres sweep Ottawa on the season. 3 straight wins over the Senators this season, this time in Buffalo in a game, sweep. They have one more meeting with the Senators, but 3-0 on the year so far, and that was an important game for Ottawa. So a lot of interesting things to get to in today's show. What we saw from tribute videos to guys scoring against their former team, but number 24 scoring against their former team wasn't Dylan Cozens on the night. It was the other guy, Jacob Bernard Docker. Haven't done much on him. We'll do a little bit of that coming up on today's show. Get to the win, and then an update on our favorite Sabre bracket as we continue to find who Sabre fans think is the most popular player or the most well-liked player of all time. Update you on some of that coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast. If you would like to become a member of our Locked On Sabres text club, and you want to sign up, you could do that by heading over to the website, joinsubtext.com/lockedonsabres. And then from there, everything is within the group chat through your text app. So be sure to subscribe to that. The Sabres get the win 3-2 over Ottawa. And it was a fine effort. It's another really solid game from James Reimer. And we'll get to more on the numbers of the game. Reimer's standout performance. It was really nice. But let's start today's show by getting to the man of the hour, not Dylan Cozens. He does have an assist on the night. Dylan Cozens did. But Jacob Bernard Docker, who scores a goal in this game, to the chagrin of a lot of Senator fans who just threw their hand. Locked On Sens, I saw one of their tweets was, oh, of course, LOL, of course. It's him that had to score in this game. Not Cozens, but Bernard Docker, who now, by the way, has 3 points in his last 2 games for the Buffalo Sabres. Although, I think he did have a pretty funny comment in postgame, which was, I don't want to get anyone's expectations out of control here. Do not expect this to happen all the time. Him to record 3 points in 2 games. He had a very nice shot, though. What a wrist shot from the point in the second period to tie the game at 2. Bar in. There was a little bit of a screen in front, but not totally, it looked like. So he had to snipe that goal, and he did. And was doing some research on Bernard Docker because we kind of bypassed him when the Sabres made this trade. Josh Norris for Dylan Cozens. Dylan Cozens for Josh Norris on the Buffalo end of things. And Bernard Docker gets thrown into the trade, and to me, that's all he was a throw-in. And still probably feel like that's the case, but looking back on the Ryan McLeod trade in the summer, talked about this the other day, that was a real throw-in. Tyler Tullio, an AHL player who wasn't even a successful AHL player, not even with the Amherst anymore, like, that's a throw-in. That is an extra asset that is almost just there to make it look like, oh, yeah, you got the better piece of the trade, or you did better in the trade than the opponent because you got this extra something. It almost doesn't even matter what the extra something is. In this trade, Sabres got to send a pick back to Ottawa, a second, to get that trade done. They get a player back, Jacob Bernard Docker. And he, in my opinion, kind of replaces Henri Jokiharju. Now that we've watched him for a couple of games, I think there are some similarities. I don't really think, I got this question through the text club. That's why I wanted to address it here on the podcast and start things off with him because we haven't really talked about him. But Jacob Bernard Docker, the background, he is 24 years old, 6'1", 198 pounds. He was the 26th overall pick in the 2018 NHL draft. Then he went on to play 3 years at the University of North Dakota. He was actually drafted out of the AJHL, the same year that Cale Makar was drafted out of the AJHL. If you don't know anything about the AJHL, not to say I know much at all about it, the Alberta Junior Hockey League, it is a lower level of Canadian junior hockey than OHL, QMJHL, WHL. And there's not often guys drafted in the first round from that league because it's a lower level. Almost like the FCS maybe is a comparable in the NFL. Makar, that was part of the risk with him, was this guy has not played in major Canadian junior hockey when you drafted him. Well, Bernard Docker was the same thing. And if you look at his numbers from that league, 20 goals, 21 assists, and 49 games in his draft year, that's how you get drafted in the first round. And when you go back in time, 6 years now, and it's a long time ago, he's 24 now, and read about what got him drafted in the first round, here's a bit of his draft profile from that year. He is a very good offensive player, boasting strong situational awareness, good hockey sense, high-end mobility, and a cannon of a slap shot from the point. Couple of mentions about his offensive game and his shot there. He's not overly big. He's not overly physical. So the risk in him as a first-round pick was going to be he's got to translate offensively to the NHL, or he's probably not going to be a very good player. And that, for the most part, has happened, and it's why he's not more than just a bit role player on a team, a 6th, 7th defenseman. But maybe last night you saw a little glimpse of the thing that got him drafted in the first round, the ability to score goals, 20 goals in the AJHL. Here's a mention about his shot as to why he got drafted, and that shot was nice last night. A nice wrister, perfectly placed. It was hard and on point. So I really liked it. I don't expect that much at all in the future. I don't expect him to be somebody that's going to score many goals for you or ever play in power play situations. I expect him to be a Henry Jokiharju replacement, who, by the way, was also drafted late in the first round and just kind of became a guy. Both right shot defensemen, both mid-size, 6'1", right? It's about the same between the two players. I feel like it's just a Jokiharju replacement. And I got that question about, hey, 24 is not ancient, and he was a first-round pick. Is there any reason to believe there's more there with this guy than what you saw in Ottawa? And my answer to that question is almost certainly no. You could also read into his AHL production a little bit. Not only did his offensive game in junior, and then, by the way, at North Dakota, I should say, he did produce at North Dakota. Some pretty good numbers there, where, 17 points in 36 games his freshman year, 25 points in 32 games, and then 18 points in 27 games. Like, pretty good for a defenseman. That didn't even translate to the AHL level. In the AHL, Bernard Docker has 15 points in 101 AHL games. He's given the Belleville Senators nothing when he's been down there. Ottawa, last year, 14 points in 72 games. So if he's a player that might need to produce a little offensively to show some value, I don't think you're going to get much of that. To me, when I look at his game through just a couple of games, 3 games so far, he is smooth. He's smooth. He's not a bad ski. He's a pretty good skater. He has not made many mistakes. And that's going to have to be his game. He's not going to make big impact plays. He's not going to throw his body around. He's not going to carry the puck a lot. He just has to be a guy that doesn't get killed when he's out there. When he's on the third pair playing 15 minutes a night, the role of that player oftentimes in today's NHL is just don't make mistakes. If you can get away with an entire shift where you don't make a mistake, that's enough for a third pair defenseman in today's NHL. And through a couple of games, he's doing that. He's not making a lot of mistakes. He seems to be a pretty intelligent player. So nothing more than a 15-minute-a-night player, though, in my opinion. Jacob Bernard Docker, welcome to the Sabres. Haven't really touched much on him. Give you a few minutes there on it. So thank you for the question, though, because I hadn't thought to get to him just because I don't really think he's a major player for the Sabres at any point going forward. So let's get more in depth, though, on the win last night over the Ottawa Senators. And is there any reason to believe the Sabres did Dylan Cozens dirty last night with the tribute video. I'll explain why and what happened there on the Locked On Sabres podcast coming up next. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by Indeed. You just realized that your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. Well, how can you hire amazing candidates fast? Easy, just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. Been in a spot where you need the hire yesterday, that pressure is on, and every day that you don't have the right person is a setback. That's when you head to Indeed. Sponsored jobs, they come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. And now you could speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now. Support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. The Sabres win over the Senators by a score of 3-2. As we mentioned, Jacob Bernard-Docker got the game-tying goal, and then Thompson wins it with the game-winning goal in the third period. Real quick, before we completely move off Bernard-Docker, I forgot to share this. Some of his advanced numbers, if you're interested in Bernard-Docker on that front, they don't look pretty. And it's why you might not expect that he's going to be the type of guy that's going to, be much of a player for the Sabres more than a third pair defenseman. His evolving hockey stats, goals above replacement, 25th percentile offensively, 31st percentile defensively, 21st percentile overall. So really not much to write home about on that front. Let's get, though, to the rest of the win for the Sabres and a couple of other things to poke through as Lindy Ruff also gets his 600th win. We'll spend a little more time on Lindy tomorrow and what he said in post-game about, he kind of sounded like he's going to be back next year. And I think that's been a real question to have, but sounds like it's going to happen. But again, you got to kind of read into his comments to get to that conclusion. We'll spend more time on that tomorrow. Lindy's future and whether he'll be back next year and whether that's a good thing that he will be back next year. To get to the rest of the game, though, the Sabres on the night, not all that strong. A lot of the numbers point to the Senators really were the better team for much of the game. Not all of the game. I mean, there is a point where in the third period, when Thompson scores to take the lead, the Sabres were actually ahead when it came to shot attempts. And they were also ahead at expected goals at 5-on-5. Now, why was Ottawa up in this game by a 2-1 score at one point? They scored 2 power play goals. The Sabres penalty kill really let them down in this game, almost let Ottawa win the game. The 2 for 4 on the power play, Ottawa goes. But 5-on-5, Ottawa has been able to finish in 3 meetings against the Sabres this season. Ottawa has 1 goal at even strength. 1 goal at 5-on-5 in 3 meetings with the Sabres this year. That's how you go 0-3. You can even have your power play goals. That's how you go 0-3. It wasn't for lack of trying. It was a combination of Ottawa not burying their chances and James Reimer stealing a couple of goals that it looked like, they did bury their chance. But then there's Reimer to make an incredible save. He was, by the way, the second star of the night. Bernard-Docker, number 1. The numbers on the night. 5-on-5, shot attempts, 57 for Ottawa, 42 for Buffalo. Shots on goal at 5-on-5 were exactly 23-23. Scoring chances, 25-15 in favor of the Senators. High danger chances, 12-6 in favor of Ottawa. And the expected goals in the game, 2.3 for the Sens, 1.2 for Buffalo. It was an incredible game from James Reimer. He was all over the crease. He was, in a good way, I should say, like moving back and forth. He was on his posts. He was taking away the right shots with the right angles. He didn't allow a lot of rebound opportunities. He looked awesome. And that's not really new. Last night it's 30 saves on 32 shots. And again, the only 2 goals are on the power play. The first of which, by the way, Dylan Cozens throws it down low. He ends up with the secondary assist to Drake Batherson. And Batherson, with an incredible pass behind his own back in one motion to get it across to Brady Tkachuk. Brady Tkachuk's got the whole net to shoot at. So even that one, like Reimer's got 0% chance, zero expectation that he should have to stop that puck. Every puck, I feel like in this game that Reimer should have stopped, he did. And there were many chances that you would even say he shouldn't have stopped it, and he did. The thing about Reimer, though, is if they were having a different type of season, I'd be on this show right now campaigning for him to play every night. To continue, he's been better than Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. I don't even think there's a dispute about that. And, when I say that, I mostly mean lately. But honestly, I think you have to say it about the season. Reimer on the year, goaltending-wise, has a .907 save percentage. His goals saved above expected are far better than Luukkonen, who's at an .888 save percentage. Quality start percentage, 72% for Reimer of his starts are quality. Luukkonen's are 49%. So, and Luukkonen has started 51 games. Reimer still started only 11 games on the year. Isn't that pretty incredible? He's only started 11 games. Feels like it's been a lot more than that, but it's because he only plays every other week oftentimes. But he's played 3 of the last 4. He's played back-to-back games. The thing is, I don't know what the point really is of playing him. Unless the Sabres feel like there's a chance they want to bring him back next year to be the backup again. But at that age, I don't know. I would rather let Levi have that to himself. They did it last year. Maybe they do want to say to Reimer, you know what? I don't think you have to play him, though, to find this out. But a likely scenario that I could see happening is the Sabres in the summer, after last year, planning on Levi being the backup, and then it didn't really turn out that way. They waived Reimer, and they were glad to get him back from Anaheim. He backs up. Levi goes down to Rochester. Their plan A next year could be Levi's going to split the duty with Luukkonen. But we need to be prepared in case training camp and the first couple weeks of the season go by, or preseason, really. We'll try to figure out as best we can if he's ready. And if he's not, then we'll send him to Rochester at the beginning of the year. That would then turn to, well, what's our plan B? Maybe plan B is Reimer signs a 1-year deal, and they work out an agreement that, hey, if Levi wins the backup job, you can either retire or we'll waive you and we'll send you somewhere that you want to go. Best we can work for you. We'll trade you somewhere. If, on the other hand, Reimer wins the job, it's okay, you're the backup goalie. Or if Levi has to go down, it's you're our backup goaltender and we don't have to go searching for that. So maybe that's a wink deal that they have worked out with Reimer. And maybe there's a day in the summer where he signs and everybody freaks out because they're signing a 38-year-old goalie to come back. But he's been pretty good. And, I guess the wink agreement of him being the plan B isn't the worst thing in the world. But I don't think you need to play him going forward to see that. Other things I saw from this game, what a pass by J.J. Peterka. Behind the back, well, not even behind the back, just a spin around, half spin pass to Jack Quinn on the other side, who put it home for his 11th of the year. Peterka's been great. Peterka got that goal earlier in the first period that got taken away from an offside challenge, and it was offside. And then finally, the third goal of the game is an awesome play by Zach Benson. Zach Benson, his 14th assist of the year. He hasn't put up a lot of points, but there he is playing on the top line with Tage Thompson and Yuri Kulik. And that's him just doing his thing. Battling behind the net, winning battles behind the net, despite being the smallest guy on the ice and the youngest guy on the ice. He wins battles all the time. He does it there behind the net. The defenseman goes down, Hamonic, and he puts it through him to get it to Thompson out in a prime scoring opportunity, and he puts it home for his 35th of the year. Sabres get the win. They hang out at the end. They grind it out. But a great play by Benson. Still waiting on more production from him offensively. That's a little bit of a glimpse, though, into the type of potential that is there for him offensively. We know how good he is defensively already. We know how smart a player he is. But that tenacity that he has to win battles along the board, how he angles himself, how he uses his leverage and his angles. It's just so impressive that he's able to win battles the way he does. And he does have a vision for passing. So I'm still hoping that there's a big ceiling for him as a playmaker going forward. And you saw a glimpse of that on that Thompson goal in the third period. So Sabres get the win. As it stands for Ottawa, fine. They're still okay. But if you look back on the standings below them, they are now only 4 points ahead of Montreal for the second wildcard spot. They are 5 points up still on the playoffs. New York Islanders, New York Rangers behind them. So they're still in really good shape to make the playoffs with just 12 games to go in Ottawa, but could have put it home a little bit more if they had won that one. When we come back, our favorite Sabre bracket, where we stand, who's been winning these votes, where you could vote, by the way, if you want. That's coming back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by Trade Coffee. If you're like me, your mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee. My first alarm goes off at 4:30 in the morning. It is imperative that I have coffee ready to go and coffee that I like. I don't have time for plan B. Also, I can't just run to the store. A lot of these places aren't even open yet. So important for me, when I got tired of selling for the grocery store brands that just weren't cutting it, I turned to Trade. And let me tell you, the coffee is next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the U.S. Brings you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts. Whether you're new to coffee or know exactly what you like, they'll handpick the perfect match for you. First bag I had was a game changer. It had a really cool graphic, by the way, a cat in outer space, beans from Ethiopia. Just finishing up that bag right now. They'll match you with a roast that is fresh, smells incredible, and tastes even better. It's subscription. It makes it so easy. No more last-minute grocery store runs or settling for whatever's on the shelf. It'll show up right at your front door. And if you don't love your first bag, no worries. Trade will replace it for free until they can get it right. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off your first order at drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL. That's drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL for 40% off your first order. drinktrade.com/LockedOnNHL. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, we are wrapping things up here on today's show with an update on our favorite Sabre bracket, trying to figure out who the most well-liked player is in team history. We've had a couple of votes go final in the last couple of days, bringing us to almost the completion of round 1 in our bracket. And everything has been chalk so far. Round 1's been pretty straightforward. Round 2 is maybe going to be where we get some upsets. So far, get Gilbert Perreault over Linus Ullmark, McGillney over Zhitnik, Pominville over Phil Housley, Pat LaFontaine over Tyler Ennis. Those were some from a couple of days ago. More recently, we have 2 that are live right now. Tage Thompson versus Miroslav Shatan. That is the 8-9 matchup in our Locked On Sabres bracket. Tage is in the lead, 71%. You got 23 hours to vote on that one. We just put it up before we recorded this show. And so who's your favorite player? If you're a Shatan guy back in the day, be sure to vote for him. And if you love Thompson, then go for him. The other one, which I expect to be domination, and that is how it looks early, 1 seed Dominik Hasek, of course, is ripping through Jochen Hesch in line 1. Poor Jochen. 90.4 to 9.6% is the vote at this moment in time. Early results have me believing that the favorite to win the whole thing right now might actually just be Gilbert Perreault. I was skeptical of that because, Twitter is a little bit of a younger demographic by average, I think, and how many fans, that are voting in our polls are going to know or have watched really more so Gilbert Perreault play. They know of Gilbert Perreault, but they probably didn't watch him. So when he goes up against Rasmus Dahlin, how's that going to come out? People have been watching Dahlin for years and years and years. Maybe that's when we'll get the upset. But for now, everything's gone chalk. Hasek, of course, how fun he was to watch. Maybe he should really be the betting favorite right now to win this thing. Next up for the Buffalo Sabres, but at Locked On Sabres on Twitter, by the way, if you would like to vote in that. Next up for the Sabres is tomorrow night against the Penguins. The Penguins, we'll talk about more tomorrow, have had a horrible season. Kyle Dubas at the helm as the general manager, trying to push in one more time with Crosby and Malkin and Letang. They've been trying this over and over for the last couple of years, and it hasn't worked. looking back in hindsight, they probably should have tried a mini rebuild like 3 years ago so that by now they could have Stanley Cup contender again. But I get it. It's tough to say goodbye to legends like Malkin and Letang. But it probably has also cost them not shipping those guys out for huge packages where you could have got things in return, maybe even a hockey trade to get younger and more and faster. They might have cost Crosby one more shot at a cup in Pittsburgh because they're nowhere near that right now, and I can't imagine they're going to be anywhere near it anytime soon. So Pittsburgh tomorrow before Philadelphia on Saturday, tomorrow's game at KeyBank Center. And before we wrap, 10-year anniversary of the Sabres Tank Bowl against the Arizona Coyotes. The tank is 10 years old, and I was there that night, and I won't lie, it was a great night. It was an awesome night. It was a fun night, and there haven't been that many of those in the arena during this playoff drought. But that was one of them. And I was very locked in on the tank at that point in time. And I'll put it up on our video screen here. I'm sitting up there with the Pray for McDavid sign that was up on the wall. My brother with the Erie Otter shirt and a garbage bag over a plastic paper bag over his head with the smiley face says "I like Ike." The McEichel that won it for Arizona, where all the Sabre fans cheered at the end. Listen, you know, I'm not here to have a tank argument right now. I have my opinion on it, and I think others have theirs. The take that I don't like personally is the one that the tank is the reason that the Buffalo Sabres are still bad. You don't have to say that it worked, but it's not the reason that they're still bad. You know, the goal of the tank in essence was at the outset, there are two centermen that are good enough to be the number one centers on a team that wins the Stanley Cup. You're trying to win the cup. You got to have an elite center to win the cup, and there's two at the top. So last place guarantees one of the two, 100%. They got the guy. They got one of them. He won the Stanley Cup. So Eichel proved the goal of getting a center that could win the cup was actually accurate. You as in the Sabres, just didn't do your job building around him for 7 years. And by the time you hadn't done it over that period of time, he got mad and angry and wanted out, and it got ugly, and now it's over. But the theory of the tank was cup-winning center. And they had a guy in the building that ended up being a cup-winning center. They just didn't see the fruits of that labor. So I don't regret it. It was fun. It was the most fun season maybe of the drought next to 2 years ago. Yeah. And it's not, to me, it's a joke to think that it's the reason why they're still not good. So there's a quick take on the 10-year anniversary of that Sabres and Coyotes game. That is going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks everybody for tuning in today. As Ovechkin scored another one last night, tune in to Locked On NHL. They are covering the OV chase. They got all the local podcast hosts that are on this podcast, local coverage that you love from Locked On, plus the league-wide stories that matter. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcasts. We'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll talk some Lindy next on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.